Mid-century modern is a design movement that was popular in the United States and Europe from roughly 1945 to 1969. The mid-century modern design aesthetic is modern in style and construction and is typically characterized by clean, simple lines and honest use of materials, and it generally does not include decorative embellishments. Pottery was a key part of the mid-century modern movement, and pieces were created by blending form and function to be both useful and beautiful. Mid-century potteries had thick glazes and were bulky and heavy. They were usually multi-layered with different textures and bright and bold colors and had abstract designs. These are the mid-century modern hand plates we're going to be making today. On your desk, you should find a rolling pin, a slab of clay, a wooden stylus, a wet wipe, some uncooked pasta to help us make some designs, and a little bit of water. First thing we're going to do is measure out how large this clay needs to be so that we can cut out the shape of our own hand. My clay is a little bit too small, so I'm going to use the rolling pin to spread it out a little bit wider, and then I'm going to take another measurement. And I notice my finger at the top is still a little bit over the edge, so I'm going to roll it out a little bit more to make sure that I can get in every finger. Use your rolling pin to push from the middle and out to spread it further out. And now it looks like this is the correct size, so I'm going to put my rolling pin away, and I'm going to use my wooden stylus to trace around my hand, cutting away all the parts of the clay that I do not need. Please keep your fingers tightly together. You're making a hand plate, so this should be one full shape, not with fingers spread or thumb hanging out. We're not doing a hand print, we're making a hand plate. So keep those fingers tightly together so that you have the most surface area for your plate. And once you've made that cut all the way around your hand with a stylus, you're going to pull away the excess clay, and one of our volunteers can collect that from the table. You will not need it. And even though this may be the back side of your project, you're going to want to clean up any excess clay that's pulled up while you cut the larger piece around. You're going to want to spend a little bit of time making this look good, since this is a plate and both sides should be beautiful and functional. And you might want to make the little ends of your fingers stick out a little bit more. So that's what I'm doing right now with the wooden stylus, is I'm cleaning up all of those edges so that they're nice and smooth. Once you've cleaned up those edges, it's time to write your name on the back of your hand plate. You can also include your room number as well. I'm noticing a few rough edges around the back of my hand plate, so I'm using a little bit of water to just go around and smooth those out before I choose to flip it over and start decorating. I'm going to take the time now to make sure that all of my edges are nice and rounded. And now it's time to gently flip over my hand plate so that I can start decorating the side I want to be the top. There is a little cleanup needed, so I'm going to use the wooden stylus once again to go make my fingertips stand out a little bit more and remove any clay that did not come off when I made my first cuts. And now that my hand looks right, I also still need to make the edges a little bit more rounded, using very, very little water and the tip of my finger to smooth out those rough spots. Once you feel that the edges of your hand plate are nice and smooth, you can put away your water, and your next step is going to be using your wooden stylus. Let's make sure the end of your stylus is nice and clean. You can use your wet wipe to wipe off any clay that has been stuck on your stylus, so that you can go and make impressions of where the separation between your thumb and hand would be, as well as a tiny indentation to where all 4 fingers would be separated. We're not going to cut through the clay for this. As you can see, I'm slowly dragging it along just to create a light indentation to show where each of my fingers would be on the hand plate. Now it's time to bring out the uncooked pasta and look it over. Check what shapes that you see on the end, as well as the patterns and textures you see on the edges, and get an idea for where you want to start creating. I'm going to use the end of this rigatoni to create fingernails on each of my fingers. Make sure that you're not pressing the pasta through the clay like this. This will end up in you tearing the clay, making a hole, and having bits of clay stuck into your pasta. I'm going to continue using the rigatoni to make the fingernails on the remaining 4 fingers before I move on to my next pasta shape. I look at the nice swirling of the rotini here and think about maybe making a texture pattern by pushing it across, or I can use the end pattern, which kind of makes a 3-pointed pinwheel. And I'm going to use this shape up and down each of my fingers to create pattern and repetition. The bow tie pasta has a couple of functionalities. It has a pattern in the middle, and it has also a pattern here on the edges that I'm going to use to go around the base of my hand. Next, I'm going to use the bow tie pasta for a centerpiece using that beautiful texture in the middle. And I'm going to push it all the way around so I can get the center part as well as the edges. Not too hard, or it could get stuck. And then I'm going to switch its position and push again so that I can create a little bit of a circular print in the middle of my hand. Next, I'm going to use the penne pasta, the end of it, which looks a little bit like a flower petal. And I'm going to make indentions all around that center part that I used the bow tie pasta to make. After I've used all 4 pasta shapes on my hand plate, I'm going to use the larger end of my wooden stylus to make some large dots around that centerpiece I created. And I'm also going to use the pointy end of my stylus to make some smaller dots as well. I feel that my hand plate is finished, so I'm going to gently pick it up off of my quilt square, and I'm going to show you some of the textures and the patterns a little bit closer, so that you can see how repetition helps with movement and flow. And since this is a hand plate and not just a hand print, the parent volunteers are going to put large jumbo straws underneath the top and the bottom to create a little bit of a curve so that it will hold that position while it dries before we bisque fire it.